Hello.
Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm tremendous. Thank you for asking. As Anna said, my name's Jimmy. I'm with Bleeding Cool, and I'm talking to Steve Agee, the star of HBO Max's Peacemaker, plays John Economist. Let me say what a thrill. This guy with two thumbs is absolutely thrilled to be talking with you. I'm familiar with some of your previous work on Jimmy Kimmel Live, the Sarah Silverman program, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. But for me, you really came on the scene as a couple appearances on At Midnight. Do you remember that show?
Oh, how could I forget it?
Right.
I had a blast during that show. I really felt like it was made for me.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I've been a fan ever since, man. And you know, and noticing you pop up ever since I've seen you on that. I've got about a baker's dozens of questions to get through if you got the time, and we'll just start firing away.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. I'd like to know, how big of a fan of comic books and superheroes in general are you in real life?
I somehow, and I don't know how this happened, because I have since starting with Guardians and Suicide Squad, started checking out the comic books, but somehow I missed that train. I was never into comic books growing up. I'm sure there must have been a comic book shop near me, and I grew up in Riverside, California, but somehow it just never happened. And so my knowledge of comics and superheroes and supervillains was pretty much relegated to what was in the movies growing up, like the Christopher Reeve Superman and the Michael Keaton Batman and stuff like that. So my knowledge really doesn't go far beyond Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, the big names. But I'm a huge fan of all the movies, and I kind of regret not finding out where the comic stores were when I was a kid.
Has that changed since you've been involved in some of these projects?
Yeah, yes. I once we did Suicide Squad, I went out and made a point of finding, all the John Ostrander comics. They have them in separate volumes, and really loved it. And I was just like, man, I would have loved this as a kid. I like it now as an adult. I like just the whole genre, but I think it would have really been awesome as a kid to get into that stuff.
Mm-hmm. How did you? Can you talk a little bit about how you originally hooked up with James Gunn, become his lucky charm?
I don't know if I'm his lucky charm or he's my lucky charm. I met James probably it was either 2008 or 2009. We had a mutual friend, Shawnee Smith, who you would maybe know from the Saw movies, or she was on the TV show called Becker. Mm-hmm. She was co-hosting a reality show that James was doing. He was also hosting it, called Scream Queens, where they were looking for the next, like Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right.
Or Shawnee Smith, actually. And she called me one night and said, I'm going to a party, kind of like a wine and cheese, hangout thing at Sean Gunn's house. James had invited her, and she was worried that she wouldn't know anybody other than James, so she asked if I would go with her. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And that's when I met James, and we immediately hit it off. We were joking around, and by the end of the night, he said, we do this every Sunday, man. He's like, feel free to come by whenever you want. And I just kept showing up.
Yeah.
Every Sunday. I don't know if he really thought I would take him up on that, but I showed up every Sunday. And not just James, but I loved all his friends, Rooker and Nathan Fillion. I think that's how I met Seth Green, and just everyone was so sweet and nice, and it was so fun. and I just kept kept going. Shawnee, coincidentally, never went back. I, however, you couldn't pry me away from these people. They're so fun.
Sure, hard to say no to that invite, I guess, right?
Yeah.
What aspects of your own personality would you say that you're bringing to your performance as John Economist?
He's not a lot unlike me. You can see the reluctance in his eyes and hearing his voice when he has to go out into the field, and he's just like, oh my God, at the sheer chance of possibly having to, confront somebody like a bad guy or fight. So like, he's not into that shit. He likes computers. He likes being at his desk and snacking, and that's not unlike me. I don't like confrontation. I don't like the idea of getting into a fight. So, but you can also tell this is a guy who is kind of a little bit jealous of people who can do what Peacemaker does and Vigilante do, and you can see that in, I think it's episode 2 or something, when Danielle Brooks comes into the office. She's like, they shot at, and she's super excited. They shot at us. Have you ever been shot at? And you can just see it when I'm just like bummed out. I'm like, no.
Right.
So he likes the idea of adventure, but he really does not want to step out of his comfort zone. And I'm very much like that.
Mm-hmm. I think you're a pretty funny guy. Sounds like the Gunn brothers find you pretty entertaining. John Cena seems to be pretty hilarious. Is there a lot of and some of the scenes on the show seem to go on for a little bit. Is any of this improvised, or is that all scripted?
Most of what you see is written, and even the scenes that you see that go on for a really long time, like that first scene in the hospital when Cena is talking to the janitor, and it just goes on for like 8 minutes or something like that, and that's all written. James loves to just let a scene breathe, even when it's like really nothing to do with the story, but it really has a lot to do with the characters. And he loves to have a nice long scene where two people are talking about something really mundane, and that's all character driven stuff. That's, that scene where he gets out of the hospital, the nurse says, you're free to go, live your life. He could have just left the hospital. It could have ended right there. It could have cut to him in a cab. But yeah, James likes character driven stuff and relationship stuff. So, and that stuff is all pretty much written. Any of the improvisation that you might see in these episodes, it's usually, if it happens, it's at the end of a scene where the dialogue kind of ends, and James will just let the camera keep going. He won't even tell us he keep going. It'll just, the scene will end and the cameras are still rolling. No one said cut, and so we just kind of talk our way through some shit, and sometimes it turns out really funny and ends up getting used. There's a scene coming up in episode maybe 5 or 6 where Cena and Peacemaker and John Economist get into an argument in the headquarters, and Cena just starts yelling names at him, and James was just like, keep going, and John was just improvising names of like celebrities and sports and TV and music, and he was just going, and John never ever ran out of references. He just kept going, and to the point where I'm not sure what they use in the actual episode because I haven't seen it yet, but like I believe a lot of it ends up in the end credits scene. James has decided to put in some like outtakes and stuff in the end credits, and I think that ends up in there. But it's long story longer. It's mostly scripted.
Right. That is his wheelhouse. Is the character stuff, right? Letting them go.
Yeah.
Letting them just talk.
Yeah.
With all these hilarious people on the set of Peacemaker, is there any hijinks or practical jokes fooling around on set going on?
Yeah, every now and then it's really funny because we like to try to make each other laugh, but that usually doesn't come until we've gotten the scene. So we know we've gotten the scene and we have it in case we need to move on, we're good to go. And if James lets us keep doing takes, that's usually when we try to make each other start laughing. And I mean, the biggest example of somebody breaking was Danielle Brooks in that first episode where we meet Cena in his trailer with the whole team. Danielle could not get through a take without laughing. It didn't help that I had my phone out and was just once she started laughing, I just pulled my phone out and started videotaping her, and that made her laugh more. And yeah, I think I posted that on my Twitter feed. So it's up there somewhere. The video's out there. I think James retweeted it. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of us trying to make each other laugh.
I was going to ask you about that. I'll have to look for that tweet on the DC fandom video. You mentioned that you're filming a lot of videos behind the scenes and stuff. Aside from that one, would any of those be public, like a journal or some sort in the future?
I have them all in a folder on my phone, and so I'm waiting till the corresponding episodes drop, and I'll probably be releasing some stuff. It's more photos now, but I have a lot of stuff that I'll be putting out when the episodes air.
Right on. Let me ask you about, there's so much tension between John and Peacemaker, and I want to know specifically, how did the joke about your beard come about, the dye beard joke?
Well, for some reason, I don't know how this started, but James has started asking me to grow out my beard whenever I shoot something with him. It started with Guardians 2 and me being a Ravager. I think he was just like, yeah, let's give you a beard. And I personally hate having a beard. I like having, like a shadow or a few days growth, but I don't like maintaining a giant beard. It's the worst. It's especially worse when you're eating and shoveling and food into your mouth and pushing hair into there. It's the worst, and I don't like having it, but he seems to find it funny. And when we did Suicide Squad, he was like, John Economist is an actual character in the comics, which I didn't know. And I think in the comics he's the warden of Bel Rev prison. And he's like, in the comics he has a beard, so I want you to grow your beard. I was like, of course you do. And then when we got to Atlanta a couple weeks early to start rehearsal, he just was like, I think I want you to dye it. I was just like, really? Which I wasn't super opposed to, because there's a lot of gray in my beard now that I'm 52. So I was like, okay, yeah. And I wanted like a decent dye job that matched my actual hair. And he's like, no. He's like, I want it to be so obvious. Like, the thing that makes a beard look natural is color texture. Like, it's not solid. You can see some lighter areas, darker. He's like, I want it just jet black. He's like, I just want it dark. And it was funny, but there was never a purpose for it in the movie other than it would look funny. And it did look funny, and I was just like, when you wrap me at the end of the day, we all go home. I still have this shitty beard. I go to a restaurant and I have this shitty beard and people are staring at me. And so I think he justified it because of that when we did the TV series. So he's like, I'm going to make Cena really reference your beard being dyed. And so we went even more extreme with like showing the roots of the beard. And it actually pays off. I mean, at least now I'm like, well, good. I'm glad someone's acknowledging it. Like, it's not just a weird, like, do you think he thinks that looks good? But yeah, it's just, I think he's done it so much that he wants to actually reference it and have it pay off.
You're not the first, but arguably the best guy in the chair as far as I'm concerned. But I want to ask you about John's character arc. Episode 3, you save the day, stopping Judo Master. And in some of the previews, the coming up for the rest of the season, we see you covered head to toe in blood. Can you comment at all about where your character is heading?
It's so funny. I had said earlier, you could tell my character is kind of bummed that he doesn't have this, adventurer type of spirit in him and doesn't like confrontation and fighting. But at the same time, he's kind of bummed that these other people get to do it. And then you can see in the van when Judo Master is escaping and he realizes he's going to have to do something to stop him, how terrified he is. But the second he beats this dude down, he gets this fucking sense of, like, superiority and, like, this big head and just, like, starts dancing and, like, screaming his own name. I think it's an awakening for Economist, but also I can say that in future episodes he's still reluctant to jump in and help out. But clearly, as you've just stated, some other shit goes down in later episodes. I can't say what, but it's phenomenal. There's an episode coming up that when I got the scripts, I marked, and the scripts and the calendar, the shooting schedule, I marked that day on my calendar. I was like, I cannot wait to shoot this. This is going to be a career highlight for me. So you'll find out very soon in the next couple episodes. But it was amazing to play all this stuff.
I can't wait. I really do love the show. It's firing on all pistons for me.
Oh, thanks.
I know that you've played guitar in several heavy metal bands in your youth, and you've got an album out on Bandcamp right now called Scab. Is there any crossover with your music into the show, that heavy metal music?
No, I moved to LA in 1995 to play music. I wanted to be a rock star. I think a lot of people do. Yeah. And that's not an uncommon thing. Actors, there's a saying, all actors want to be rock stars and all rock stars want to be actors or comedians. And I'm certainly no exception, other than the fact that I actually did play in, a bunch of bands in the 90s. And so for me, music is just a hobby. I have an amp and I have Apple Logic on my computer, so I just diddle around and play stuff randomly. And I don't consider myself a great musician, but I was doing a live monthly show with Brendan Small, who created Metalocalypse and Home Movies, and is an actual shredder. He went to Berklee College of Music, he's an amazing guitar player. And we did a show at the Baked Potato Jazz Club every month that was stand-up comedy with our comedy friends and then music with our music friends, where we had a house band and then everyone would do a set of their comedy and then do a song of their choice with our band. And Brendan and I would also do, a song of our choice each month. And at one point I was like, I should just write a song every month on my own to do with a band, and that way at the end of a year I'll have enough songs to actually do an album. I only got 5 songs into it before I got lazy with writing, so that's why I have an EP and not a full album. Right. But I don't consider myself a serious songwriter. I'm a comedian, so I write funny lyrics. I like really playing heavy music and grunge or thrash and stuff like that. But I don't think it fits into James' style of, a soundtrack or a score. But I'm there if he needs me.
Right on. I've had you a couple minutes. Let me try to bring this plane in for a landing here. When I was a young lad, I used to get up early on Saturday mornings, have to get up early to beat my brother to the couch so I could get the good spot in front of the TV to watch Saturday morning cartoons. But I would have to get up even earlier than my parents to beat him into the kitchen so I could pour myself a big bowl of sugary goodness to get me through the day. So, Steve, Agee, John, Economist, I'd like to know, what was your favorite bowl of Saturday morning cereal and what cartoons did you watch?
I had a lot. I love Captain Crunch. I went through a huge phase, probably around, 10 or 11, where it was just nothing but Cookie Crisp. Ooh. I don't even think they make it anymore, but it was literally little chocolate chip cookies.
Right.
You would pour into. That was my go-to. I love that and Captain Crunch and, scraping all the skin off the roof of my mouth with Captain Crunch. Mm-hmm. Wait, what was the other question?
Favorite cartoons. Cereal? Favorite cartoons on Saturday morning.
For me, when I was a kid, there was Saturday mornings. I don't remember as far as cartoons, but they had syndicated. There was a show that they would, I forget what the show was, but they would always play Little Rascals, the Little Rascals, Our Gang, which is just weird because it's black and white from like the 30s. And for some reason as a kid, that's what I loved to watch, was the Little Rascals. I think that makes me sound so old saying that right now.
Not at all. That was. But, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I loved Looney Tunes. I love Looney Tunes. I love Bugs Bunny. I love, all the old classics, Roadrunner. But yeah, probably Bugs. As far as cartoons, like Bugs Bunny was probably my favorite.
Mine too. I was going to say that Little Rascals was on every morning before I went to school, so that's what I would watch while I was getting ready for school. And I found it pretty hilarious. But then when you come to find out how they shot those and what they did to those kids, it was.
Oh yeah, dude, so bad. Like it went so far, beyond child labor laws, and like. So many of them became criminals and had really troubled pasts and really were broke and destitute. A lot of them, it was, not cool. Very funny, but not cool.
Right. Steve, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to wrap it up here. I've got Peacemaker, new episodes airing Thursdays on HBO Max. I got your EP Scab available on Bandcamp. Is there anything else you want to promote? Maybe your socials?
Just at Steve Agee on all the socials, Twitter and Instagram. And this week's episode is going to be great. Jody Hill directed it, from Eastbound and Down and Righteous Gemstones and Vice Principals. He was terrific. I think this is a great episode.
Right on, man. Thanks so much. Do me a favor, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you on the other side.
You too, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jimmy. Bye.
Thanks, Anna. Bye-bye.